Hi friends, welcome to our second installment. In this video we'll work with a kriya of the Kundalini tradition, and you might like to have a yoga mat, you might like to have a bolster or a pillow or some sort of cushion, and you might like to have a blanket as well as set up near the wall or some kind of sturdy furniture that doesn't move, and we'll get started. This is for a new energy balance. I have this video for a particular person in mind, so if you need some other kind of choices or modifications, please be in touch and I'd be happy to go over that with you. This person's been practicing for quite some time, so this will be with them in mind. We meet once in a while for one-on-one session, and then we follow up with videos, and that's just how it works for us right now. If you're interested in that, be in touch. So we'll start with basically it's seated cat-cow. The soles of my feet are together. My knees are in a cobbler's position, as some of us know it, or Baddha Konasana, or bound angle. We have a bit of an arch or an arc for a seated cow, and then a seated cat rounding the spine. My gaze stays pretty much forward, so we're focusing on warming the lower portion of the spine, the sacral, the low back, and the navel center pulls in and up so that the mid-back gets involved. And you'll notice as we move through this set that we are working with what we call in yoga the lower chakras, and then making our way up through to the mid and then higher parts of the spine, the neck, and even the crown of the head. So finding your breathing, powerful breathing as you're ready. And exhale might round your spine, and inhale might arc or arch the spine. Finding a soft gaze as it suits you. You're also welcome to close the eyes if that feels more comfortable. Some focus the gaze at the tip of the nose or the heart center or the third eye, as we call it in yoga, the spot up a little from the center of the eyebrows. The breathing is done mostly through the nostrils in this set. The breathing through the nose is said to be linked more closely to the mind, the brain. Notice where your inhale is, notice where your exhale is. Finding your inhale, and if possible, pausing the breath just for a moment, and then releasing the exhale. The second part of this kriya or set is moving from what many of us know as Cobra pose or Bhujangasana, and then into a plank. In the Kundalini school, they call it platform. And so if you feel once you get here that your spine would just do well to have a bit of a warm up, which is what we were doing, but here we are in a different position. You might like to start in Sphinx pose. Some refer to this as half Cobra, and just give yourself some time to find your breathing as you lift and lower, and continue with that warming up of the spine. And then once you feel warmed up, we'll move into the Cobra. The directions call for the soles of feet to be together. When my sacral low back is feeling tight, I prefer hips width, or sometimes even a bit wider. So see what works for you. Sometimes tucking the toes under a moment wakes up the legs. And then we'll bring the hands closer to the shoulders, and we'll lift into the Cobra. And then as we come a little bit down, we'll switch the feet. You can do one at a time or two at a time, and lift up into your plank. And then we'll release back down into the Cobra. It might feel like the upper body's more in an up dog, but the knees will be down. And then you can tuck the toes under and lift up. And now you start to find your powerful breathing again as you move from one pose to the other. Maybe inhale to open a bit, exhale to press and release. Finally coming down, giving yourself a moment, maybe making a pillow for the head with your stacked palms. Turning your head to one side or the other as you wish, and finding your breathing. And once again on the inhale, if you can, right after the inhale, pause a moment. And this time, if you'd like, engage the root lock, the Mula Bandha or the Mula Bandha, which would be as if, continue breathing as I explain this, which would be as if you're stuck in traffic, you need the restroom, and there's none to be found. And then we'll start that again. So find your inhale, engage the root lock as you wish, as you pause the breath, and then release the lock with the exhale. Find your breathing, and we'll move to the third part of this kriya, which asks us to find a squat with the feet wider than the hips. Your toes might go out a tiny bit on a diagonal. You're welcome to roll up the back of your mat a bit and give your heels a little cushion. You could also have a roll of towel or blanket there. And then we'll take Venus lock. So the fingers interlace. The thumb of one hand finds the space between index finger and thumb of other. And then the thumb of the other hand finds the mound referred to sometimes as the Venus mound in the map of hand under that thumb. And your arms actually wrap around your legs. Gazing forward, finding your breathing. And this time we'll practice breath of fire. So it's similar to the powerful breathing, but it's faster, but it's soft. It's not a sharp breath. So you know the navel center does a little pump, a little pull in and up, and on that pull, the exhale's releasing through the nose, and the inhale will then automatically happen. So finding your breathing and beginning. Releasing your breath, finding your inhale. If possible, pause just a moment, no root lock this time, and then release your exhale. And we'll move down to the next part, where you may or may not want a little layer of blanket under your low back. We'll lower down, just be sure you have safe space behind you. And then once you're down, we'll raise the legs, and you might like to bring your hands just a little bit under the sacral spine, kind of like you're boosting the hips up a tiny bit. And we'll start to lower and lift. You might like to keep your toes pointed or wrapped. You might like to flex your feet. See if one way or the other feels more supportive to you. And also feel how your back feels here. So if you go down so low and your back starts to lift way up high off the earth, let's press the back down and see if we can find a place where we're using our center space, but also protecting and supporting our back. You may or may not want your hands underneath you. Finding your inhale, finding your exhale as you're ready. See where it feels best here. Powerful breathing now. Releasing, breathing, taking a moment, finding your inhale, pausing breath a moment, and then finding your exhale. So, as some of you know with the Kundalini yoga, often it is kept track of the sets or kept track of with time. I like to do the number of breaths that I take. So sometimes I work my way up to 36, then I do 72, then 108. Also, some popular numbers in the Kundalini school would be 21 or 56, and there's a variety of them. But you get the idea. You start where you're able, and then the more you practice, you might add on. For most of these postures, we're working on 1 to 3 minutes in case you like to do the timekeeping bit. So this next pose you might know as Locust or Shalabhasana. I'll rest my chin. You could rest your forehead or the side of your head. We're going to take that Venus lock behind us again, but if that isn't where you're at right now, you could find your elbows. You could, well, I think I wouldn't be comfortable just holding one wrist, but eventually you'll interlace fingers. Place your thumbs as we did before, one between index finger and thumb, one under the mound of the thumb, and eventually we'll lift the hands, the heart, the head, and the feet. And we're going to add breath of fire. So just be sure you're comfortable wherever you are. If you need to add a blanket in case you don't have a cushion underneath you, go ahead. And we'll find our breathing. And we'll set up for our posture. And just make sure that you're taking care of your sacral spine with your tailbone, maybe pressing the hip bones in the front down a bit before you lift up. You could lift on an inhale or an exhale. One of the practices I do says that if we lift on the exhale, it actually helps tend to anxiety. So you might like to give that a try. Finding your inhale. Breath of fire as you're ready. Releasing down, giving yourself a moment, finding your inhale, pausing a moment, and finding your exhale. Taking it back or rolling it over. I'm going to give myself a child's pose for a moment. And then finding your way to a supine position so that you can give yourself a big squeeze in, maybe do a little rock and roll at first, maybe even rocking and rolling forward and back to give your whole spine a massage. So you can see now and feel now perhaps that we're making our way up the spine with these postures. And then giving your legs a good old hug, maybe holding elbows or almost elbows, bringing nose, forehead to knees, and you guessed it, breath of fire. Once again, find your inhale. Begin. Release. Finding your breathing. Finding your inhale. Pausing a moment. Finding your exhale. Next posture you may or may not want to do with the wall. So since I have this wall right here, I'll go here, but you could also bring a blanket and go where there is not furniture if that's better for you. Let's see. So getting your legs up the wall or up the furniture, the bench if you're me, and using that to support you in a shoulder stand. The back of my head is to the floor. I have a little space between my neck and the floor, and I'm using the bench to assist me and then go up. But you may not want that, and eventually your heels, your knees, your hips, and your shoulders might start to come more into alignment with each other. So finding your inhale, and yes, even here, we'll practice our breath of fire. Releasing your breathing. Finding inhale, pausing breath a moment, releasing exhale. Now I have the bench right here. However, we want to come into plow pose next. So from this place, your feet might start to move behind you. And if they are touching down, you might start to press more into what we call the ball of the foot under the big toe. And obviously all the other little places under the other toes. However, if that is not for you and you can roll down in order of the vertebrae, we'll take it to the wall, but instead of facing the wall, did we just face the wall? Instead of how we were with that wall, we'll have the wall about an arm's length away so that your feet can actually press into the wall. So you can give yourself some momentum and do some rocking and rolling, or you can lower down slowly but surely and make your way there. And it's actually a pretty nice release. Now I have a blanket in the way for the back of the legs too, when we can find the wall to work with. Or you might walk those tippy toes down the wall and find the floor once again. I have a blanket, but that's okay. And you could even place a block under there just to lift your feet up a little bit before they come all the way down. So here we are in our plow pose. Your hands can stay at your hips as you like. Super good work for thyroid gland, parathyroid. Finding your breathing. Making sure there's a little bit of space between your neck and the floor. And after an inhale, breath of fire. Releasing, and now we will roll down in order of the spine, upper back, mid-back, lower back, sacral spine, finding your inhale. Pausing a moment, finding your exhale. Finding your feet to the earth. Being held by earth for a moment. And we'll make our way to the last portion of this set before rest. You have the option to sit on the heels or between the heels in what some would call hero pose. And so you may or may not want a prop, a blanket for your upper and lower legs to hold on to. Sometimes I want to roll a blanket under my ankles, just see how it feels for you. And this time we'll take Kali Mudra, the 4 fingers point, the others interlace, and the thumbs stack. This is super good for releasing jaw, neckline, shoulder tension. And Kali, of course, is the great goddess of change. And so depending on how your shoulders are feeling, some of us sometimes just feel better with elbows out in front of us. Eventually you might have your hands up overhead, but if hands up overhead means that your head has to come very far forward, see what you can do to find some kind of center space with all of that. This is a kriya within a kriya. Sat kriya can be done all on its own. On the sat, S-A-T, the navel center is pulling in and up. On the nam, N-A-M, the second sound, the navel center is going a little soft. So sat, nam, translates to I am truth. Truth is my name. Finding your inhale, and it continues with that powerful breathing and that soft pump. Finding your exhale. And beginning after an inhale, I think. Hang on a second. No, after an exhale. Here we go. Sat, nam, 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 sat, nam. I am, I am, I am, I am, I am. Feel free to use any of your languages. I am, I am, I am, I am. We are, we are, we are, we are, we are, we are. Finding your breathing. If possible, pause, engage the root lock, the mulabandha, the mulabandha. Imagine the heat moving up through the back of the spine, the back of the heart, all the way out through the crown of the head. Release the hands, release the lock. Find your breathing. Find your inhale. Find your exhale. And we'll release to rest. Giving yourself a moment, if you'd like, as we grow still. You might like to cover up part of you or all of you. Maybe taking your chin from one shoulder to the other, since we spent a bit of time in shoulder stand and plow pose. Your neck might appreciate some releasing. For the sake of video land, the Shavasana, the constructive rest, will not be as long as I would encourage you to stay. You might like to stay and even play some relaxing music or sound, ocean sound or nature, bird song sound, or maybe you have a crack of window open and you can hear that for yourself wherever you are.